Hi my friends. Well, it seems like an absolute age since I made my last video, and that is because we are having to wait for a building permit here in Cyprus, and it's a process that takes many months, which is hugely frustrating as I want to crack on with this project. So we can only do very small jobs here on this village property, and the job today is I have to construct an external electricity box on this perimeter wall. And as this limestone wall is around 500 millimeters thick, I want to grind my way in around 100 millimeters to recess the box. So I'm beginning by cutting several lines into this limestone, which I shall then chip out by hand or maybe use my SDS drill to work my way in. It's going to be a slow and laborious job. It's around 32-33 degrees today, so at the moment I'm in the shade, but when that sun comes over it's going to be absolutely scorching, so I best crack on. Now ordinarily I would set up a hose pipe and spray this stone continuously as I'm cutting it, but we have a severe water shortage here on the island at the moment, so this little mask is going to be my only protection from that dust. Well, I've been chipping, grinding and hammer drilling for around 4 hours now in 30+ degrees, and I think I've got the basic opening formed. I just have to do a little fine tuning with a hammer and chisel, but as I say, these summer temperatures here really do sap your strength. It's around 32 degrees here in the mountain village of Drusha, and I'm told it's 40+ in the capital of Nicosia. So, but these jobs have to be done, so just take on plenty of water throughout the day. I'm just taking off any high spots now, and then I'll mix up some sand and cement to fill these larger holes where rocks have dropped out to get the back relatively smooth. But that timber electrical box will set in the wall nicely once it's prepared. Well, I'm going to clear away all of this debris. Well, I've constructed the carcass for this electric meter box using 18mm marine ply, but the roof and the doors will be made of the same 30mm thick rebaited Norwegian pine as those enormous village gates that I made a short while ago. So let's crack on and assemble this box. As with the gates, I'm gluing all of these rebates, pinning them with the Milwaukee nailer, and then adding screws for extra strength. as with those village gates, I'm going to construct this little door in exactly the same way. I've cut all my pieces of Norwegian rebated pine in readiness, and I'm going to clamp the very first piece along the edge of this sheet of plywood, which I know is straight. And also I know that the end of this sheet of plywood is exactly 90 degrees, so my door will be dead straight. And of course we need to glue all of our rebates. Slide them into position. Tap. And it's important to apply plenty of glue. This is that D3 external wood glue. That is so good in a country like Cyprus. So plenty in that rebate. Slide him into position. Making sure all the time that the edge of our boards are in line with the sheet of marine ply. And I'm just tapping them together loosely because I'll be using these heavy duty sash clamps later to pull those rebates together. I love to see the glue easing out of these rebates. That's how you know you're getting a really tight joint. These sash clamps are the only tool for this job. Now I'm going to pop some 30mm brad nails through those rebates just to tighten this door up. And for good measure I have these timber straps which will go across the inside and really strengthen this little door. So, plenty of glue on the back. And I like to slide the timber back and forth just to get maximum coverage of that glue. And I have a small spacer of plywood just to make sure that we are in position. There's a light breeze in the mountains today, which is a blessed relief from these scorching temperatures at the moment. Once again, at this stage it's important to wipe off any excess glue, because believe me, when it's hardened it's a devil to get off. Really is a solid little door that will last for many years, especially with several coats of that walnut wood stain. Now that will be dry in a few minutes today, ready for a light sanding. Now it would be so easy just to screw these strap hinges onto the face of this little cupboard, but for aesthetics I'm going to let them into the wood with a hammer and chisel. So just line those up perfectly and mark all the way around. Same on this side. sometimes it pays just to take that little bit more time, care and attention to detail. These hinges are between 4 and 5 millimeters thick, so that's the amount we have to let in to these doors. Well, that's the hinges rebaited into the door and it's now operational. But I want to take the door back off and give the whole thing a thorough sanding before we start applying those coats of walnut wood stain. So I started with a 60 grit paper just to rip off any high spots, and now I should go down to a 120 just for that fine sanding. So it's time to start applying the walnut wood stain, and as with those huge village gates, I've added a little water to the first coat just so it sucks right in to that Norwegian pine grain. And already the wood is looking absolutely stunning, but I'd like to give it at least 3 or 4 coats so they get a little darker and darker to match those gates. This is the second coat being applied and the colour is starting to darken beautifully. So I'll be happy when it has at least 2 more coats. Now previously I installed this 2-inch plastic pipe within the wall to take the cables from the meter through to the courtyard. So I now have to mark this pipe on the back of my box, and I'm thinking the easiest way to do it will be to put a little bit of paint on the edge of that pipe . Hopefully when I offer up the box, it'll give me the indication of where to drill the hole. This really is a meaty electrical box. And that's the first time it's been offered into the hole and it fits like a glove. I'm hoping when I remove the box there'll be an indication of just where that pipe is on the back. And there it is, So I can now drill my hole. So now I'm going to use my new 2-inch hole saw to pop this through. Now it's important that we drill from both sides so we don't splinter this plywood. A little from the back. And the rest from the front. Beautiful neat hole. Now hopefully this box is going to sit nicely into this niche that I've made, and this plastic pipe will pop through this hole. Wow. Perfect. So with the box now installed, it's time to level the whole thing up because it must be true. Just need to raise it up on the right hand side, so in this wedge screwdriver. Perfect. Absolutely wonderful. Now we're going to pop a couple of 4-inch screws through this little box into the stone to hold it in place, and then it'll receive another 2 coats of wood stain before I point in the stonework around it. So we need our screws to be in a nice straight line as always. So and we're going to pop this SDS drill straight through the plywood into the stone. Of 6mm wall plugs. Now I'm going to put 6mm penny washers on these screws so the head doesn't drive into the plywood. Just a light tap. Wow, that pulled in nice and tight against the limestone. And here it is. So now it's time to pop the door on and then get ready for 2, maybe 3 more coats of that wood stain to get it the same colour as these entrance gates. But the majority of the work is now complete. Time now to install this heavy door onto our electric box. Hi, so to extend the life of my little electric meter box, I've decided to cut these beautiful handmade terracotta tiles and set them into the stonework above, just to create a little roof and take away those winter rains. So the first thing we have to do is cut off this overlapping edge of the first tile with my little hand grinder. Once again, eye protection and a mask is vital. So having taken off the overlap of our first tile, I now need to take around 100mm off the back of each tile to set them into the wall to get the perfect overhang on the front of our electric box. Now we just need to repeat that process on the other 4 tiles. Now it's time to mix up a little cement to bed that box and those roof tiles in. And for this I'm going to be using a brown sand and a white cement. This produces a mortar very, very close to this local limestone. This is a bucket trowel, it's flat on the bottom, perfect for mixing small amounts of mortar in the bottom of a bucket. Once again, it's extremely hot here in Cyprus, so this mortar will dry incredibly quickly. As you can see, it's already the colour of this local stone. Right, well, the little tiled roof on this electric box is now finished, and I've even sprayed those silver hinges black and installed a little catch on the side to keep the door closed on windy days. Now the final job to do on this little box is to install the same metal studs that I did on these entrance gates. So I've pre-drilled and marked all of those holes. So let's put an end to this little job. If you can find original ironmongery like these little studs, it really does add the icing to the cake. The final pin and the end of this little project. And there it is, my friends, another wonderful addition to our Cyprus Mountain Village project, which I believe complements these colossal entrance gates beautifully. Thanks for watching.